What does transformation healing meaning to you? What the challenging have you overcome in your life that transformed who you are today? Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday. Welcome to our Transformation Healing podcast. I am your host, Riya Wang, a certified transformation healing coach, a spiritual mentor. My healing journey has taught me the meaning of my life, that also I can help the people who transform the limitation, bring back the confidence, passion, and the joy. I have traveled worldwide to learn and share how healing can change our lives. In this podcast show, I have invited my guests from all over the world come to here to share their inspiration stories, wisdom, and knowledge with all of you, that you can implement these tools, ideas into your daily life. I'm so excited. Welcome my guest, Bradley Moore. Welcome here. Welcome to our podcast, Bradley. Tell us where you come from first.
Hello, Riya. Hello, everyone out there watching. My name is Bradley, as Riya mentioned. I come from Dayton, Ohio, born and bred.
Are you born from there? I know as Bradley, we've been talking about quite a bit. So you have quite a bit of stories, Bradley. So you was work at UPS, then now you're living the life, work at your dream job that helps the leaders who spread, who are deliver and speaker on the TEDx stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right. From UPS
So
corporate to thought leader, accountability coach.
that's quite a bit of journey. I would like to talk about it later today, not later today, talk about now. What does that leadership meaning? But before we go into the leadership, I like to ask you the same question I almost ask all of my guests, but everyone have a little bit different because each one have different stories. What does transformation healing meaning to you, Bradley?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm not sure how I answered that the first time, but I think if I had to kind of sum up what it means for me, transformation healing just means basically what you teach is really don't just heal from the traumas and impact big things that impact you in your life, those really heavy events or losing a loved one, is turn that grief and that trauma into something that you can transform, right? To help guide you in life, help you ground yourself, center yourself. It's really taking that grief and transforming it into something positive, right? Whether
Mm.
that's mindset, physical exercise, a spiritual practice, that kind of thing.
Yeah, then share us a little bit about your transformation healing journey. So I heard your story about the wolf boy. Then I don't know what another stories. I know you share a lot story with me, but the one story I think that touched my heart when you talk about the healing journey you go overcome with that.
Hmm.
You like share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. Yeah. So Wolf Boy, exciting name. I know that not many people call me that anymore, but when I was a kid, I used to essentially just be outside in what my brother would call a loincloth, but just a pair of underwear, boxer briefs. And so that's where the name Wolf Boy came, is I was always on all fours running around, howling in the woods, just being free, being a kid and really experiencing, that what it means to be in nature and connected with it, present with it, right? And so I developed the name Wolf Boy because that was my primary activity. And so, I think many of us probably have, and almost all of us, I would assume, have that, wolf boy, wolf girl, wolf person, whether it's, a shark boy or whatever, metaphorical animal you use, right? I think we all have that younger identity.
Only the boy will be call themselves wolf boy, shark boy. The girl will be good that name.
Yeah, yeah. Flower girl, or it's just I think the main purpose of that is to elicit the connection to nature, right?
Mm,
Thus the
mm,
wolf boy. I mean, it's just a really basic way to say this person is in nature a lot.
mm,
And I think that something that we all have as children, right? Whether it's our backyards, or for me, I was lucky enough to be in a housing plat where they were kind of clearing forests. So I had forests all the way around me. So I got lucky on that front. But I think we all have that opportunity to, put our feet in the dirt, really connect to the planet through, mud and grass and bugs, and just a curious connection that comes from that, right?
mm,
And as we grow up, and this is what happened to me, we go through school and we get acculturated and we start to become cool, or at least try to, in my experience. And through adopting those different habits and personality patterns and just habitual ways of being in society to really connect with people around us, right? We slowly push away those things that we developed, like Wolf Boy, or, my connection to trees that I used to have. I used to love climbing trees and just sit in there for hours and just kind of be in nature and think and ask questions, right? And those are not professional and promotable traits in a corporate world setting, or really any kind of. And hopefully that's changing now, which is why I kind of hesitated. But it's not the trait that they look for on the resume, right? Are you connected to your inner self? It's not something you see on a resume. And so I think over time, as I worked through UPS and really pushed myself to get into a position where I could be promotable and profitable and be a good manager, I really pushed away those things that I used to kind of really cherish, which was just that curious conversation with no goal. That
mm,
empathetic connection to everybody, even if I didn't know them, or even if they slighted me, right? Those traits that you develop as a child and slowly get kind of hammered out as you realize that not everyone respects those traits, or that people might manipulate you because you're a nicer person, right? And so I think my journey, and kind of to point to the transformation of the grief and the unfulfillment that came with leaving that part of myself behind, because that's a real part of us, right? That's our childhood persona, our ego. And so that's where my transformation came, was through a heavy psychedelic experience, kind of realizing I wasn't living in my zone of genius, right? And my zone of genius was deeply connected to that wolf boy. And so I started to reintegrate the things that I'd pushed away, like just being curious and asking questions. That's one of the huge modalities that I use to coach now, and just to, interact with people. It's like
mm.
coming from that place of curiosity rather than that place of, oh, I know the answer that I want to hear, but we'll see what they say. And if it aligns with my cultural standard, then we could be friends.
Yeah.
Right? It's really having that open, empathetic mind to just let people in and be their friend, right? That's one of the qualities, you could say, that have helped reintegrate back. And so just kind of just outlines the journey, and it's been fun.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people grow up, when we grew up, we was like you play with dirt. That the nature make us so happy. That's when you grow up, but you get a little confused because the cultures, the education, the
Hmm.
parent, the environment. You start looking for your identity outside the world.
Exactly.
You want to be
Outside yourself.
somebody, want to be that, but you start a little bit lose your authentic self. Then you feel struggling, then confusing. But
Hmm.
it's so great now you come back to your nature that help you no matter what helped you because we do have many tools in the world, how different things can help you, like you said, synthetic herbs or some transformation healing couch. So all of the things can help you to connect with your true self,
Yeah.
connect with your authentic self. That if you know that is your true self, you will be living with
Yeah.
naturally happy and joy.
Hmm.
That's how you did now become the thought leader manager, help many leaders on the world
Hmm.
to speak these stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I think you
yeah.
say it perfectly.
I'm just summary what you said. So that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. So Bradley, so now you help a lot of leaders. Then for yourself also as a leader, I would like you share a little bit about what does leader meaning to to you and to type work you do, because sometimes people confuse the leader and the manager.
Yeah.
how they are different.
Yeah. So this is one of the main things that I used to kind of drive home at UPS, and one of the things that really helped me kind of distinguish wasn't really maybe meant for that path, right? The UPS corporate path, because I noticed that the majority of leaders versus bosses, and I'll make the distinction shortly after, was very skewed, right? Being there's many more bosses than there was actual leaders. And so this is the prime example I used to use when I would go into someone's trailer at UPS to help them teach them to load or XYZ, right? I would say, hey, look, there's a big difference, talking to the belt managers or whoever between a boss and a leader. A leader will, the boss points and says, hey, go do this job. Let me know when you're done and do it right. The leader takes the first step, shows you how to do it, shows you the standard, sets the standard, does it themselves, is accountable to it, and basically walks the journey with you rather than pointing and telling. And so that's one of the big things. Go ahead.
Leader is more inspiration other people than with other people follow what they do. It's boss and manager more demanding, like tell you what to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I mean, as a leader, you don't have to you're not expected to do the groundwork all the time, but it's like really just setting that standard. And so this is a good example of leadership I would do was when I knew I had a belt soup that I was, kind of helping train and just working with generally. I had certain expectations for their load quality, and I would say, here's the expectations, but 9 times out of 10, I would get in there with them, and really clean up one of their loads, make the beautiful wall, protect the customer's packages like we're supposed to, and show them like, hey, I'm not only telling you, I'm not afraid to jump in and show you and help you and do the work. And that's really what creates that bond of leader and mentor, or whatever you coach, whatever you are. But that leadership comes from doing the things you say you're going to do and doing them well, and then holding that standard, right? And I think the main thing people should always remember, at least in my perspective, when you want to be a good leader, is you have to genuinely and authentically care about the people you're leading, not just as an employee, but as a person in life, right? And so everything that I tried to help lead through examples, experiences, metaphors, whatever, was always an attempt, yes, to do the job at UPS effectively, efficiently, productively, safely, all that fun stuff, but also how could I plant a seed of growth in the person I'm training's mind outside of UPS, whether they want it to be a transformation healing coach or the best loader that ever walked the halls of UPS, right? It's like, how can I plant a seed of wisdom, of coaching, right? Of how I can build this person into a leader, right? Because that's really what a good leader does, is they create new leaders and then they move up. And that's how a good organization is started, right?
Yes, I think each of us are unique, our own life. We are the leader with our own life. When you're doing something that help you self grow, then you share that with others. That you automatic, not say automatic, you are in the process of the leader. As you share more, as you did more things, it's not just living for yourself. You're living more for others. That you inspire other people. You don't need to tell other people what they do, but they just want to follow you because that's the sense you're doing great. Inspire them, that help them to become the leader in your life.
Yep. It's being the example rather than, telling them to go and do it themselves, really setting that standard yourself as a leader.
Yes, that's beautiful, beautiful to share. Thank you. So, who and what influenced you to become, today in your life to us?
So I think I owe a ton of credit, excuse me, to a ton of people, but the main thing was just seeing it done poorly and experiencing poor leadership, and just really having the question of like, what is a leader supposed to do if your responsibility is to just point and tell me to do it, right? Just being the person who experienced the boss more than a leader. And so that drove me to kind of study John Maxwell, Jim Rohn, Les Brown, all these like really OG motivational speakers. They talk about leadership and confidence and planning your day and all these things that I hadn't really ever been exposed to. Right, and all those principles started to compound, and I would put quotes in our office black whiteboards, and people would come in and see that, and those little things really matter, right? And so over time, I started to listen to more and more of the stuff on YouTube. It actually started with a guy named David Goggins. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but I just heard a video of him on YouTube, basically inspiring people to, push themselves and do better. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I like this motivational speaking kind of stuff. And so that's kind of where it blossomed. And from there, I just started doing research, reading books, and asking people, like Think and Grow Rich, Magic of Thinking Big, all these really fundamental, you know, leadership value books, whatever you want to call them. John Maxwell is a huge influence on me too, but just mentors and coaches, just like I, come to you and get your advice on how to transform my grief because you're the coach, right? I think coaching is just one of the things that if you want to have a blossoming and fulfilling life, so one of the things that you need, right? And I realized that that's what was going to be the vehicle to me becoming a good leader, was finding a good coach and implementing their techniques and strategies and structures and eventually adopting them into not just UPS, but now into thought leader and, moving forward in my own business and just everything you do in life, right?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're not leader yet, it's okay, but you always start with yourself. So
Yep,
how do you think
exactly.
about the self-love relate with the leader?
This is a great question.
I because that was my topic. I was talk in another public speaking. I talk about self-love with leadership. So
Yeah,
now I throw this question to you to see how is your answer, because each one goes through different
yeah,
self-love journey. That how do you? I also say self-love brought you confidence. When you
exactly.
start your confidence, then you will be able to share with the world, right? So
Hmm.
how you can start with the self love? How is your self love to lead you to the leadership?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I honestly felt my emotions getting a little churned up there because, just thinking back to the beginning of my journey
Mm,
with personal development and self love, really, it really comes down to, so self love is not watching an entire season of Netflix and eating a tub of ice cream repeatedly, right? That consistent, that's the typical, or those typical material things that we think of as like, oh, I'm just treating myself, right? I think self love, and this is so opposite to our culture, but it really comes down to how much discipline you have in your life.
mm,
So for me, like the main, and I tell people this all the time, my cornerstone habit is whatever physical, whether I'm running or just in the gym, right? And that's what I consider, really fundamental self love is like, what are you doing to progress the areas in your life? And for me, it's the ones that I've studied over hundreds of successful people, like who we mentioned, Jim Rohn, John Maxwell. What did they do in their lives? And there's 5 areas you want to grow in life, right? Your physical health, your mental health, your financial health, your relationships with people, how you treat each other, and then your spiritual or creativity, right? Those are the 5 areas you always want to be growing in. And I picked those specifically after, and this question was proposed to me basically for myself, like, what is a fulfilling, self-love full, like really happy life? And it comes down to, are you trading those little bits of time a day to really do those disciplines that are going to give you that long-term fulfillment of having a healthy body, of being able to run a business because you've read 50 books in a year on it, right? And I'm not saying do this overnight, but as you slowly work yourself towards that discipline, it becomes your self-love routine, because now you have that confidence that I do these things every day to grow myself, to be a better leader, to be a better teacher, to have a better mindset, to have not just a bigger bank account, but be able to have more freedom in my life, right? That's really what financial growth is all about, is growing your, ability to control your time, which is where, in my studies, most happiness comes from. And you could probably attribute this, having your own business, you get to develop your own day every day. That kind of control is really the ultimate form of self-love, right? You've given you up the routine pleasures that a normal person will take, TV time, just any general lax off, eating too much, whatever it is. We all have our own vices. I still play video games too much, probably. But when you give that time up and you put it towards these disciplines, and it can be whatever you want, right? You don't got to follow mine. You don't even got to do the ones I mentioned at all. You could do crayon art, might be your self-love, right? But if you have that discipline to consistently do it day in and day out, you build that confidence, and eventually you start to feel that it's an intrinsic feeling versus an outer material driven feeling of like, oh, I bought this new car, now I feel self-love because I treated myself. It's more like, no, I got it in at work today. I provided more value than I was paid to provide. I worked out harder than I was planned to work out at the gym. I read a little bit more than I was supposed to read, saved more money, et cetera, down the line. And eventually you are overflowing, right? That's the whole reason you want to get self-love, is you want to be to the point where you're overflowing and you can give back to others. And you're that beaming tower of light that, can
Yes.
just serve people. And so, long story short, self-love comes down to disciplining your time and growth for me.
I love what you just said. That's when I talk about the self-love. I'm always talk about the self-love. It's like you said. So self-love is not say I love myself. I treat myself a vacation. I treat myself a hamburger because I love myself. It's a self-love. Is how do you make the sense to help you grow? So like
Exactly.
when I did my self-love journey is on my birthdays, I think that is special for me because like I shared my story when I was born, be sold, abandoned by family. Then birthday before for me is sad, it's abandoned. But now the birthday for me is special because I make that special. Is I will be doing something like I excited next month I'm gonna go Spain to walk 100 miles.
Mm,
Then that help me to become stronger, to become more better. Then I will be doing something like a meditation retreat. So something help you grow inside you,
hmm
to help you
Exactly.
then to appreciate who you are, and you
Yeah.
will be loved by yourself. Then you split that love then to another people, then you help another people. That I was share with how to transform from self-doubt to self-love. Then you become the leadership to inspire
Mhm.
other people.
Exactly.
Right. That's the journey. I think we always share. I love you have the five. That's a
hmm
five key to become self love. Can you repeat that five key again, Bradley? So
Yeah,
that
sure.
the people who's listening here, so they can gather that five key, then to use the daily life.
Yeah. I do want to be clear. Taking vacations is important too, right? You got to have that
Yes,
balance in there. I think
yes,
to spend all of your time in discipline is kind of the antithesis of what I want to, because then it's becoming a chore and it's not, you're doing it to do it, not for the intrinsic fulfillment. But those 5 areas that I work on, and these come just for a little references, I call them YouTube mentors, but basically all the or apex predators, you could call them in their fields, right? Like Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Grant Cardone, whether you like him or not, like these really high tier businessmen, fulfilled people in life. These are the 5 things that I've kind of gleaned that they work on, or that they
mm-hmm.
focus on, or teach, or preach, or whatever. And those are, and they're areas of growth, right? It's not. It's important to just know that you want to be progressing, right? And that can be, going up 1 pound in your bench press. That's still progress. You don't have to be out there, throwing the entire gym around like, your strongest person ever.
It's a journey. It's step by
Exactly.
step. The journey. It's not say like I want to have a 6 pack. I work 24 hours per day per week.
Exactly.
You have
Yeah.
to work slowly, step by
hmm
step, for weeks, for months, for years
Exactly.
to get that. And the self love also is not say when I say it's not say take one vacation. Vacation is important. Everybody need that
Yeah.
balance. It's just
Exactly.
how do you between all of your life, then you're doing something consistent that help
Exactly.
yourself grow. So that's what. So I love you talk about more the five
Yeah.
key about the
Yeah.
self love and yes and the leadership.
So for me, that's those things start, and this is just my preference. It could be anything for everyone, but I start with physical. I call it my keystone habit, right? We all have one. It could be reading for you. It could be going to church. It could be just reading the Bible. It could be donating some of your time, your money, whatever. But we all have a keystone habit that if this one stops, most of the other stuff crumbles. For me, that's the physical, mainly because if I don't feel like I have the energy to read the book after I get done working, I'm definitely not going to read the book on how to save better. And if I can't save better, then I can't take my girlfriend, for instance, on vacation. And then we can't have that deeper relationship bond. And if I can't have that deeper relationship bond, what's the point of being a creative person? Because, well, I'll be creative, but I'll be alone in my room writing sad poems, right? And so those 5 areas are your physical health, right? You want to be growing physically. That doesn't mean going to the gym and, like we said, lifting everything in there. It just means maybe you go on a 5-minute walk every day. And then after a month, maybe you go on a 10-minute walk, right? And eventually it can plateau out to you walk 30 minutes a day and that's it. But you still have that consistent, practice. Then your mental, that's the next one, right? You got physical, then mental health. Once you have that energy, are you spending that energy to enrich your mind or to detract from your mind, right? Are you watching Kim Kardashian or, whatever, not to bash the Kardashians. That's what my parents used to watch, my sister and mom. But whatever, right? And you can watch Netflix. I'm not saying don't watch Netflix. I watch Netflix. But I also make sure I get at least an hour or 2 of an audiobook in or some seminar on YouTube from someone that I'm studying, maybe who has better business than I have, right? So you got to be growing your mind.
Yeah, read some book that
Exactly.
every time when I read a book that inspired me, so I will put it down and write some notes.
Exactly.
So that's
You got to hear new ideas, right? You can't recycle the same ideas and expect new content to come out. Unless you're Albert Einstein or something, right? And it took him 20 something years to get the theory of relativity down, or 10 years or something like that. But that's the second area, right? You got physical health, mental health, and then third is your financial health. Now, a lot of people might ask, why is financial health before your relationship health? Well, because if you're not healthy enough to walk the mile and you don't have enough energy to read the book, you're definitely probably not going to have the foresight to save more money or get better at planning your expenses, right? And if you can't afford to keep yourself afloat and maybe go on a vacation or 2 every quarter, you definitely shouldn't be putting a whole nother person in your life in the relationship category. So I say get your finances straight. Now, that doesn't mean you need a watch and a new car and a new house. What it really means is where you're at in your life. Can you afford to live there comfortably and save some money for a rainy day? Right? It doesn't mean becoming this next big stock trader. Right? Maybe you read some books on stocks and you slowly start to dip your toe and invest and do that kind of stuff or build a business, right? But you need to be sound in your financials so you can take care of other people before you try to develop this relationship with someone, right? You wouldn't marry someone who's got $10,000 in debt and then instantly have 3 kids.
yes.
Because there's something that needs to be dealt with first, right? So you guys can pay the rent. And so that's why I put financials third. So once you and yourself are healthy, right, you can do the financial side. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like what you said, I think that is at least you are not in the survival mood. You are always
Exactly.
inside the mood, so you get stressed out. How
Hmm.
do you can have the better positive energy to hang out with others?
Yeah.
Even have a little good time, hang out quality time with family or your girlfriend or boyfriend. So
Yep.
that is really important part to be stable.
Yeah. I completely agree. And we all have different measurements, right? 100,000 might be comfortable for someone, a million might be comfortable for others, right? And
Yeah.
I think one thing to mention there is, and then we'll move on to the next, is you can help a lot more people if you need a lot less. It's actually something I just got today from reading. So I'll give you a live example of what it looks like to have a little bit of mental growth. So I'm bad at saving money. That's the area I'm focusing on the most right now. I need to develop those skills. So I'm reading The Psychology of Money by a gentleman named, just one second. What's his name? No, not Robert Greene. Morgan Housel. Great book. I recommend it to everyone. But something he said here is savings are created by spending less. This is something I just learned today. You'll spend less if you desire less, right? If you're more intrinsically motivated versus outwardly motivated by a new car to make yourself happy, which will never last, right? Intrinsic motivation is where we start. You will spend less if you desire less. You will desire less if you care less about what others think of you, right? And so that all ties into each other, right? If you're going to the gym or going on a run and you're reading every day and you've got your financials straight, you might not be financially free yet. You might still be working 20 hours a day if that's what it takes, but you're on the right track. When someone pokes at you at that point or they take a shot at you, you're not nearly as apt to get reacted because you're consistently taking the steps to move past. And in a month or 2, you'll be blown by that person in their growth, which is, you shouldn't compare in that way, maybe a little bit for motivation, but you get my point. It allows you to have that really strong sense of self to where you don't feel like you have to cater to everyone's opinions, or even if their opinions, they don't matter really to you anymore, right? You just don't care what they think because you're growing yourself so much.
Yes.
And so you got your financial growth under wraps, right? Now you can help other people. Now you start to develop good relationships. Now, obviously, don't wait until you're 40 and you're wealthy and successful to have a good relationship with your parents. But also, you shouldn't, like we mentioned, go try to marry someone with a bunch of debt. It's not going to create a good basis for the relationship because you're going to have stress, money, all that stuff's involved, right? So make sure you can take care of yourself first. And then developing those relationships. So relationship growth and spiritual growth is one of the more, I guess, higher tier, if you want to call it, but they come after those three things. Those are fundamental. You got to be physically, mentally, and financially growing. And then relationships and spiritual growth, which we'll talk about more, it doesn't exactly mean religious or anything. Those are like the upper tier where now you can start to intrinsically give your cup what's that extra from your cup can now go into the relationships, and you can start to enrich other people, and you can really have that successful marriage, right? And with
Before
that,
we go to the marriage, I would like the relationship. You start with yourself first. That we
yeah,
just talked
great
about
point.
self-love, that right? When you know how to do have the relationship with yourself, then you start
Exactly.
this relationship with others. So
Yeah.
just add a little bit of the self relationship. So
Yeah.
that's
No, I
great.
love that. I hadn't thought of that yet, honestly. I always thought of them overall as being the relationship to yourself. But that's a great point. Is same thing with the financial. You can't really have a good relationship with others if you have all this trauma, all these patterns of behavior that come from that place, right? And we've
Yes.
had a session and now, and wow, it was great. And I always flex to people how my spirit animals were the same when I was younger and older. Doesn't mean I'm awesome. Might mean I'm awesome. I don't know. But just like you mentioned, like having that strong relationship, like I know myself well enough to know
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to even engage in this relationship because it's not the one for me, right?
Yes.
Whether that's romantic, business, casual friendship, any of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need that attention from people because you're not in a state of desperation anymore, which repels. You're in a state of abundance, which comes from me, which attracts, right?
Yes,
We
when
all
you
know those.
understanding your own self, then you have a better clear to choose what relationship will
Yeah,
help you grow, then help
exactly.
each other instead of trapped in the bad relationship because
Yeah,
you couldn't figure out yourself. How do you expect other people figure out you?
right. Or start to help them figure themselves out, which creates that relationship, right?
Yes, yes,
So that's why the relationship is the fourth one, because that's where we all get fulfillment from the most, right? I
mm-hmm.
think we should all take care of ourselves first. That's kind of how, not to get patriotic or anything, but that's kind of the basis of America. It's like, hey, you're going to take care of your own stuff here. You're going to have all the rights and freedoms to do it, but you need to do it, right? And
Yes,
so that's an easy way to do it. Spend it, this look how this looks is an hour, 30 minutes running every day. That's what I used to do. Nothing crazy, right? An hour of a book or 3 4 hours of an audio book a day, and you're working at the same time, find places to overlap. And so it's not big chunks of your day, right? It's doable. And so once you get your relationships straight, right, and you're growing your relationships, which is a lot of, hey, what can I do to be better in this relationship? I know I make you feel this way when this behavior comes around, right? And those are deeper, more not philosophical, but almost. It takes a lot of surrendering, right? That's why it's an upper tier value, because now you're surrendering parts of yourself to other people, which in its own right is a way to grow yourself as a person. You're becoming more humble, more open, more compassionate, more empathetic, right? Those are the measurements you want to look at. Am I growing my relationships?
yes. You caring more other people, caring more the world.
Exactly, exactly. You identify yourself as more, this is in the later stages, at least for me and who I've studied, is you identify yourself more with your community, or like you're not just you're your family, right? And if you get hurt, your family's going to take that hit because you won't be able to produce in those areas, etc. You see yourself as a provider and part of the whole,
Yes.
right? Get that more collective mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, spiritual growth, right? Now, I don't mean religious. I define spiritual growth, and if you're pragmatic, the word I would use with you is creative. Are you being creative, right? And I think in the 21st century, I would be remiss to say religion doesn't serve its purposes and it doesn't help millions of people, because it does. But I don't expect you to go and become a Hindu or become a Second-day Baptist Christian to grow your spiritual growth. You can do that, but why not just read the Bible? Why not listen to a Joel Osteen? Not because you're a Christian and you're going to go and, tithe at his church, but because he's a deeply studied person on the Christian religion. You can creatively absorb that knowledge and get closer to spirit or to yourself or to what you call your own spirituality, whether that's, well, I'm a scientist and I believe the world is based in physics. Great, me too, but I'm still spiritual because we don't understand it all yet. And to me, spirituality is questioning. I actually have a couple little note cards right here I'll share with you. Being spiritual means always saying yes to the voice that tells you to give, right? It's not you have to go to church and become this great pastor and raise all this money. It's just when you hear in your head, well, I should tip this person $15, and then you go, no, that's too much, I'm going to tip them 5. Listen to the 15. Right? It's that simple.
You say from another point, you explain is that being spiritual is have open mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's just follow more, pay attention about your thoughts, pay attention about, be aware about especially the God's feelings. It's
Exactly.
something
Yes.
like you say, oh, 15 or 5. Who's the talk in your head? 15 or 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that message, you're more pay attention. It's not just annoying this. So
Yeah.
that is
Exactly. I like how you say that and that's a good question. Is like, what is the voice telling you? 15, right? Who is that person who do they identify with, and then who is the $5 person or the $2 person? Or the, well, she was 2 minutes late bringing me my tea refill person, right? Are those thoughts that would, and this is why I love the 5 pillars, because you can trace it back, right? You go back to relationship. Okay, is this the thought that I would use if I was going to grow this relationship? Absolutely not. You would say, you know what, I can afford the extra $10. Might take away my monster money for 2 days or whatever, my coffee money. But I'm going to enrich this person's life. And even though this relationship might never grow anywhere because I might never see this waiter again, I value myself enough as a person and I identify enough with my community to support this person's journey, whether they spend it on beanie babies or drugs. Doesn't matter, right? Your purpose is just to grow that relationship. And that's where you start to see those tenets of becoming a leader come out, because you get to the point where you're fulfilled in your physical health, right? You're fulfilled in your mental health. You don't need to feel mentally superior to others, because in 5 years you're going to continue to read and you probably will be, smarter than this person who's giving you a hard time, right? And then you know that you can give that extra $10 because your financial situation is so in check, because you're so humble about the way other people look at you. You don't need to buy, the whole pitcher of beer when you only want one, because the boys are out with you or the girls are out with you, right? And so they stack, right? And every one affects the other. If your physical health isn't where it needs to be, how are you going to have the energy to get all the way up to being creative and spiritual at the end of your night and writing down in your journal, this amazing idea you had about the connectedness of trees, or even the simplest thing of, how can I be creative in my relationships, right? If you're
yes,
worried about money and you're worried about being able to breathe because you're overweight, and then on top of that, you're listening to all your negative friends all day tell you you'll never do XYZ, that is, you're basically blowing holes in your castle, in your personal love or your self-love castle, if you want to put it that way. You're breaking the foundations. These are the foundations to having a fulfilled and loving self-life.
that's wonderful, Bradley. I think that 5 pillars of the self-love, then to leadership, then to the spiritual awakening. Like you said, the part of spiritual awakening is not that you have to become religious. It's
Yeah.
just be more aware what is the voice in your head. Then
Yep.
also, when you feel the spiritual awakening, I always tell my clients, what does that mean, spiritual awakening? That you feel comfortable who you are, and you start all your creativity. You don't care too much
Exactly.
what another criticizing voice behind you. So you just to be connected. Also, we talk about they have higher energy. So we will talk about more. We can continue this conversation on and on. Have so many
Yeah.
stories to share, but thank you so much to come here to share these 5 pillars with all of us. That is very valuable sharing. Thank you. So before we close this podcast, I know usually my podcast is 25 to 30 minutes. We are way out of this time because we have so good
Yeah.
conversation. I want to continue going to there, but we have to end today here. So before we get off this podcast, how people can find you? You give so much this wisdom, this tools for people to learn how to become the leader, how to live in the life with your joy, with your passion. So how do they find you? What is the best way they can find you, learn more?
So the best way to get a hold of me would be through my LinkedIn and my Instagram. Just DM me, at me, all that fancy stuff. I'm not super social media. I'm not a big expert at it yet, but we're learning, right? Obviously, I want to help serve more people, so it's just one of the best platforms to do it. So you can reach me there. Yeah.
Thank you, Bradley. Thank you for coming here to share your stories, share this tool with us. Thank you, everybody. So also, we have this. When you are in here, you already see we have all of Bradley's information posted on there. Then, if you have the story you want to share the world, then you want to give more in the world to help inspire other people, you know where to find me. You can always email me at riyawang369 at gmail.com. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward for you next Tuesday. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Riya.